You know that feeling when you listen to Baroque music? The majestic, soaring sounds of a Bach organ piece or a grand brass choir. It just feels awe-inspiring. It all sounds so incredibly powerful, so perfectly designed. But what if I told you the genius wasn't just in the composer's head? What if there was a silent collaborator shaping every single note?
Well, here's the big idea we're going to unpack today. The very buildings where this music was performed, they weren't just venues. They were active creative partners. The architecture itself, the stone and glass, had a huge say in how the music was written, literally shaping harmony from the ground up.
To really get how this all worked, we have to start with a problem. A really big, booming, echoing problem. I mean, the magnificent stone cathedrals of Europe were, and still are, visual masterpieces. But for musicians back then, they were an acoustic nightmare.
Get this, 5 to 10 seconds. That's how long a single note could just hang in the air inside one of those massive cathedrals. Seriously, imagine clapping your hands and hearing that sound just swirl around you for almost 10 seconds. That is the incredible challenge composers were up against.
So, this effect has a name you've probably heard: reverberation. It creates what experts call a wet acoustic environment. And all that wetness was a huge, huge issue for the most popular music style of the day, the really dense and complex music of the Renaissance. You see, Renaissance music was mostly built horizontally. The best way to think about it is like you have multiple singers all weaving their own beautiful, independent melodies at the exact same time. It's a style called polyphony, and it is incredibly detailed and intricate. So what happens when you try to perform that kind of music in a space with a 10-second echo? Yeah, all those carefully woven lines just bleed into each other. All the clarity gets completely lost, and what should be this beautiful, complex tapestry of sound turns into an ugly, muddy mess. The architecture was literally fighting the music.
So what do? Well, the composers innovated. They were brilliant. They didn't fight the building, they started working with it. And this led to one of the most important inventions in all of Western music, and it was a direct answer to this problem of echo. What they did was cause this fundamental shift in thinking. Composers moved away from that horizontal approach, all those overlapping melodies, and they started thinking vertically. So instead of weaving lines side by side, they began stacking notes on top of each other to build solid, powerful, and clear chords. And here's how it worked. It was pure genius. First, they'd anchor the entire piece of music with a really strong, slow-moving bass line. They called it the basso continuo, and that gave the music a rock-solid foundation. Then, they slowed everything down, changing chords way less often. This gave each chord time to bloom and fill the space and resonate clearly before the next one came along. It was such a simple but truly revolutionary solution.
And you know what the perfect instrument for this new style was? It was already built right into the architecture: the pipe organ. With those deep, sustained pedal tones, the organ could literally use the entire cathedral as a giant speaker, creating these massive towers of sound that celebrated the space instead of getting lost in it.
But this whole idea went even further. I mean, in some places, the architecture didn't just influence the music, it straight up dictated its form. And for the most famous example of this, we've got to go to the absolutely stunning St. Mark's Basilica in Venice. The layout of St. Mark's is totally unique. It has multiple choir lofts, and they're positioned on opposite sides of the church. This very specific floor plan gave birth to a technique called cori spazzati, which literally just means split choirs. Think about it. The sheer physical distance between the choirs created a natural sound delay. So to keep everyone together, composers had no choice but to write simpler, more rhythmic, chord-based music. And the result? It was breathtaking. You got this incredible call and response effect, like stereo sound, with music bouncing all across the cathedral. This idea of contrasting groups became the concerto principle, a cornerstone of Baroque music, and it was born directly from the floor plan of a single church. Amazing! So when you put this all together, you start to see that Baroque composers weren't just artists. They were also brilliant architectural problem solvers. They heard the challenge that these stone walls presented, and they literally composed the solution. And this, right here, is the key takeaway. The cathedral wasn't just a passive box for the music. No, it was an active filter. It made one style of music sound like mud, and in doing so, demanded the invention of a whole new one. The architecture was, in a very real way, the final composer.
So that grand, powerful, crystal-clear sound that we all associate with the Baroque era, that wasn't just an aesthetic choice they made out of thin air.
It is the sound of human ingenuity finding a way to create clarity and incredible beauty inside these vast, resonant chambers of stone and glass.
So I leave you with this final thought. The next time you're listening to the power of a Baroque organ, ask yourself, are you hearing the genius of the composer, or are you hearing the echo of the cathedral? Maybe it's a little bit of both.